Sarah was counting the day's money when she heard the bell above her door chime. It was past closing time at her small flower shop, and she had forgotten to lock up. She looked up, expecting to see a last-minute customer, but instead saw a man in a black hoodie with a mask covering half his face. "Please don't scream," he said, his voice shaking. "I just need the money from your register." Sarah's hands trembled as she stared at him. But something was different about this robbery. The man's eyes looked sad, not angry. His voice cracked when he spoke, like he was about to cry. "I don't want to do this," he whispered, stepping closer to the counter. "I really don't want to do this." Sarah slowly opened the register and pulled out the bills. As she handed them over, their fingers touched for just a moment. His hands were cold and shaking worse than hers. "Thank you," he said softly, taking the money. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Then he ran out into the night, leaving Sarah standing alone among her flowers, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't understand. The police came and took her statement. They said it was probably someone desperate for drug money and they'd likely never catch him. Sarah nodded and agreed, but she couldn't stop thinking about his eyes and the way his voice broke when he apologized. 3 days later, Sarah was at the coffee shop across the street from her flower shop, trying to feel normal again. She ordered her usual vanilla latte and found a seat by the window. That's when she saw him. He was sitting 2 tables away, no mask this time, reading a book. Same dark hair, same build, and when he looked up from his book, the same sad brown eyes that had haunted her thoughts. Sarah's coffee cup shook in her hands. She should call the police. She should run. Instead, she found herself walking over to his table. "It's you," she said quietly. He looked up and his face went completely white. The book slipped from his hands and hit the floor with a soft thud. "Please don't call the police," he whispered, his eyes filling with tears. "Please." "Why did you do it?" Sarah asked, surprising herself by sitting down across from him. His name was David, and his story came out in broken pieces. His little sister had leukemia. His family had no insurance. The hospital bills were drowning them. He had lost his job 3 weeks ago, and his sister needed medicine they couldn't afford. "I walked past your shop every day for a month," he said, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I told myself I'd find another way. I applied for jobs. I asked family for help. I even tried to sell my car. But Emma got sicker, and the doctor said she needed treatment right away." Sarah listened, her heart breaking with every word. "I picked your shop because it looked peaceful," David continued. "I thought maybe you'd understand, and when I saw how scared you were, I almost couldn't go through with it. I hate myself for what I did." They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Sarah asked, "How is your sister now?" "Better," David said. "The medicine helped, but I can't live with what I did. I was going to bring your money back, but I was too scared you'd call the police." Sarah stared at this broken man across from her. Logic told her to walk away, to call the police, to protect herself, but her heart saw something else entirely. She saw a brother who loved his sister so much he was willing to destroy himself to save her. "Come with me," she said, standing up. David looked confused, but followed her across the street to her flower shop. Sarah unlocked the door and led him inside. The shop smelled like roses and fresh soil, peaceful and alive. "I want to offer you a job," Sarah said. "I need help with deliveries and taking care of the plants. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work." David stared at her like she had lost her mind. "Why would you help me?" "I robbed you." "Because you didn't want to," Sarah said simply. "Because you apologized. Because you're trying to save someone you love." Over the next few months, David worked in Sarah's flower shop. He was gentle with the plants and kind to customers. He told Sarah stories about his sister Emma, who was getting stronger every day. Sarah found herself looking forward to his smile. Each morning, to the way he hummed while arranging flowers, slowly, carefully, they fell in love. It happened in quiet moments. When David brought Sarah coffee without being asked, when Sarah stayed late to help David learn about different types of roses, when they laughed together over a customer's impossible wedding flower requests. One evening, as they were closing the shop together, David took Sarah's hands in his. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice serious. "I've saved enough money to pay you back for what I took, all of it, plus interest." He pulled an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the counter between them. "But that's not what I really need to say," David continued. "I need to tell you that I love you. I know it's crazy. I know I have no right to love you after what I did, but I can't help it." Sarah's heart pounded as she looked into those same brown eyes that had once terrified her, that now made her feel safer than anywhere else in the world. "I love you too," she whispered. David pulled her close and kissed her softly, surrounded by the flowers that had brought them together in the strangest possible way. 6 months later, they were planning their wedding. Sarah wore flowers from her own shop in her hair. David's sister Emma was the flower girl, healthy and laughing as she scattered rose petals down the aisle. But as Sarah walked toward David at the altar, she noticed something that made her stop breathing. In the crowd of wedding guests, she saw a man who looked exactly like David. Same face, same hair, same eyes. After the ceremony, the man approached them. "Congratulations," he said to David. "I'm glad you're happy." Sarah looked between the two, confusion spinning in her mind. "Sarah," David said quietly, taking her hand, "I need to tell you something. This is my twin brother, Michael." The world seemed to tilt around Sarah. "Michael was the one who robbed your shop," David continued, his voice breaking. "I found out what he did, and I couldn't let him live with that guilt. So I pretended to be him when you saw me in the coffee shop. I thought I could make it right somehow, pay you back, and you'd never have to know." Sarah stared at her new husband, the man she had just promised to love forever. "You mean you never robbed me at all?" she whispered. "No," David said, tears in his eyes. "I fell in love with you because of how kind you were to someone who hurt you. I fell in love with your forgiveness, your big heart. But I've been lying to you about who I am this whole time." Sarah looked at Michael, the real robber who was crying now too. "I'm so sorry," Michael said. "When David told me what he was doing, I tried to stop him. But he said you deserved someone who would love you the way you deserved to be loved." Sarah stood there in her wedding dress, surrounded by flowers, realizing that the man she married had never committed the crime that brought them together. He had simply loved her enough to carry his brother's burden and spend months earning forgiveness for something he never did. "You beautiful fool," Sarah said, touching David's face. "I didn't fall in love with you because you robbed me. I fell in love with you because of who you are. Every day I spent with you, every moment we shared, that was real." David looked into her eyes, hope and fear fighting in his expression. "Can you forgive me for lying?" he asked. Sarah smiled through her tears. "I fell in love with a man who was willing to take on his brother's shame to protect him. I fell in love with someone so good, he spent months trying to earn forgiveness he never needed in the first place. How could I not forgive you?" She kissed him then, there among their wedding guests and flowers, knowing that sometimes love finds us in the most impossible ways, and sometimes the greatest act of love is carrying someone else's burden as if it were your own.